Picture this. A massive conflict breaks out between two nuclear-armed rivals, right? A flashpoint that could throw a whole region into chaos. But now, imagine a third, even more powerful nation is watching from the sidelines. And they're not there to be a peacekeeper. Nope. They're like a scientist in a lab, just carefully watching their experiment unfold. That's the story we're diving into today.
So that's the big question, isn't it? Because that short but incredibly brutal conflict that flared up in May of 2025 between India and Pakistan, well, it might have been way more than it looked like on the surface. It just might have been the world's most dangerous product demo. Okay, so first things first, let's set the scene. Tensions between India and Pakistan are nothing new. But in 2025, that fire reignited with a speed and an intensity that was just shocking.
The spark? It was a deadly insurgent attack in the super-contested Jammu and Kashmir region. 26 civilians were killed, and the fallout was, well, it was immediate, and it was severe. India knew it had to respond, and respond forcefully.
So on May 7th, Indian forces hit back. And they hit back hard. For 4 straight days, the two militaries were locked in the deepest cross-border attacks anyone had seen in 50 years. I mean, it pushed the whole region right to the brink before a very fragile ceasefire was finally called on May 10th. But then, as the dust started to settle, this startling news story began to emerge. Indian military sources started saying, hey, we weren't just fighting Pakistan. They were insisting there was this unseen player on the field, pulling the strings from the shadows. And this accusation is absolutely key. See, India wasn't just saying that China supplied the weapons. They were claiming China was feeding Pakistan real-time intelligence. We're talking live inputs on their troop movements and their positions. This suggests a much, much deeper, more active role in the fight. So you've got 3 main players here and 3 totally different stories. Pakistan just flat out denied it all, saying, nope, we acted alone. And China? Well, China went with this very strategic and pretty telling silence. They wouldn't confirm anything, but they wouldn't deny anything either. And that ambiguity, it just made the whole mystery even deeper. And this is where we get to the absolute heart of the matter. Whether China actually started the fight or not, it seems they brilliantly and opportunistically used it as a real-world laboratory for their most advanced military tech. Let's be really clear on this term. A proxy proving ground. This isn't your classic proxy war where one big power tells another one to go fight for them. No, it's almost more cynical. It's about letting a conflict play out and using that chaos to grab priceless data on how your own weapons hold up under the stress of real combat. And for China, you gotta understand, the stakes here were huge. This little 4-day clash was the first time some of its best military hardware had ever been used in actual combat. We're talking about their HQ-9 air defense system, their advanced PL-15 air-to-air missiles, and their very capable J-10 fighter jets. For the first time ever, these things weren't in a training drill, they were in a live-fire experiment. So you might be wondering, why was there so much Chinese gear on the battlefield in the first place? Well, this number says it all. A staggering 82% of all of Pakistan's arms imports in the years right before the conflict came from China. The battlefield was, basically by design, already stocked with Chinese tech just waiting to be tested. But here's the real kicker. It's what happened next. With all that fresh combat data in hand, China immediately turned around and went right back to its customer. Just a few weeks after the ceasefire in June 2025, Beijing offered to sell Pakistan an even more advanced arsenal, and this time it included their new J-35 stealth fighters. The test was over, time to sell the upgrade. But China didn't just stop at collecting the data. Oh no. They then executed this masterful strategy to turn those 4 days of fighting into a global marketing campaign for their entire defense industry. The playbook was pretty simple, but wow, was it effective. Step 1, test your gear in real combat. Step 2, have your embassies and officials publicly celebrate how awesome your systems performed. Step 3, launch a really sophisticated disinformation campaign to make your competitors look bad. And the ultimate goal? Step 4, block their sales and snatch up those juicy contracts for yourself. And get this for a wild, modern example of that playbook in action. The Indian Air Force flies French-made Rafale jets, a direct competitor to Chinese fighters.
So French intelligence reported that China launched a campaign using fake social media accounts, pushing out AI-generated images and even clips from video games, trying to pass them off as debris from Rafale jets that were supposedly shot down by Chinese tech.
So did it actually work? Oh yeah, it worked like a charm. The disinformation was so effective that Chinese officials were able to convince Indonesia to slam the brakes on a major purchase of those exact same French Rafale jets, a deal that was already well underway. It was a direct blow to a major global competitor.
So let's zoom out. What does all of this mean for the bigger picture? Well, this event didn't just wrap up with a ceasefire. It actually kicked off a brand new and maybe even more dangerous dynamic in the region. I mean, just look at the money, because the numbers tell a fascinating story. In the budget right after the conflict, Pakistan actually cut its overall spending. But its defense budget, that shot up by 20%, all the way to $9 billion. Pakistan was gearing up for another round, and you can bet China was ready to be their #1 supplier. And that really just leaves us with this final thought. This whole thing teaches us 3 really critical lessons about modern war. First, information warfare. Using stuff like AI and fake media, it's not a sideshow, it's a primary weapon now. Second, the battlefield proof is the ultimate sales pitch in the global arms market. And third, that these regional conflicts, they're not just regional anymore. They've become global showrooms. So when a battlefield becomes a showroom, well, the question of who the real winner is becomes a whole lot clearer.